Welcome to GCA Unmuted, the podcast where we share the stories and strategies that show how Georgia Cyber Academy makes online learning work. School culture doesn't just happen. It's built, reinforced, and celebrated. At GCA, PBIS, Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports, helps create a consistent, positive culture for thousands of students across Georgia, all learning virtually. I'm joined today by Lakin Whitesides, GCA's PBIS coordinator, who helps lead the work of shaping school-wide expectations, celebrating positive behavior, and creating a thriving community in an online setting. We'll dive into how PBIS works at GCA, how you scale culture in a school without walls, and what it looks like to celebrate positive behavior virtually. So thanks again for coming on, Lakin here. But can you share a moment or a story or really anything in general, an example, something that comes to mind that really captures the impact that you've seen of PBIS at GCA?
Okay, thank you for having me. Really, it's been a huge connection for us with our teachers and students. Our teachers have been able to engage more with the students through PBIS and the students as well. We've seen teachers do crazy dances, all because that's the reward that the students are using their points for. We've seen students want to eat lunch with their teacher, in the virtual setting. And so the students are really using this as their opportunity to engage with their teachers, engage with their peers, and really be celebrated for being on task, doing what they're supposed to do, and learning in our virtual setting.
Sure. For those unfamiliar, Lakin, what is PBIS? Like how would you explain what PBIS is and why it's important? Why are you like, hey, this is super important, we need it? What is it? Why is it important?
So, the whole purpose of PBIS is really to celebrate those positive behaviors. So, in turn, you do not have negative behaviors. And so, that's kind of the whole big thing. And I know a lot of people say, well, how do you even have negative behaviors in a virtual setting? Well, kids are kids. So, they still, can act out in different ways. But really, our whole goal is to celebrate them doing good, so then in turn, they want to keep doing good, and not have those negative behaviors. And so we use a program called PBIS Rewards to really give students points for those positive behaviors. And then they're able to use those points, that's kind of like their money, to then cash in different store items through their teachers. And so we use something here called SOAR, safe, on task, awesome attitude, and responsible. And that's what we kind of set up. We call a matrix where we have students showing these different um, attributes, and then we give them the points based off of, are they on task? Are they being responsible? Are they, engaging with their classmates in a positive way, showing that awesome attitude? And that's really what our teachers are doing through the PBIS program.
Very neat. So the just to try and sum it up here, the main idea behind PBIS is instead of getting on to kids about you don't do this, don't do that. It's more of like a when you catch them doing something good, hey, that's great. I see that. Do that. Positive reinforcement instead of negative reinforcement, emphasizing good behaviors. And the teachers are the ones, they're the people, boots on the ground, that are implementing PBIS, Lakin, as I understand it.
Yes. Yes. So they're the ones implementing it, and you're exactly right. It's, acknowledging those positive behaviors, and setting up the expectations. We have these expectations of SOAR, and so we set that up at the beginning of the year. We have lessons for the kids that they go through to understand SOAR, understand what it is in our virtual setting. Our teachers are the ones doing the lessons with the students as well. And then in turn, what I do is I'm here to support the teachers through the program. What do they need to help their students soar? What do they need for the lessons? What do they need in their classroom stores? Giving them ideas, giving them resources so that they can help encourage these kids to always have these positive behaviors.
Hmm.
And really, we've seen a huge increase or huge decrease, I should say, in our behavioral referrals. So referrals have gone down with the use of this program.
Oh, wow. So when you talk about these clear expectations and these behaviors, and you've mentioned SOAR, can you remind us real quick what uh, SOAR each of those uh, letter stands for. And then can you tell us, because if if the teachers are doing these lessons and it's about SOAR and that's how you're setting expectations, can you tell us what behaviors fit into each of those? And then my follow-up question is, are there behaviors that are positive that a student can do that don't fit into SOAR that they can still be awarded points for?
I'll answer your second part first. Yes, for sure. So one thing that we have been giving students points for through the PBIS rewards program is being on camera, because that's been such a huge initiative for us here at GCA, is to have all of our students on camera. So we are giving them separate points outside of SOAR for that. And then we are also having teachers this year do SEL check-ins with their students. Social emotional learning, so important for all of our students, for our staff, for everybody. So just as teachers are, checking in, seeing how your students are that day. Are they having a great day? Are they not? No matter what, as long as they participate, we're encouraging teachers to then give the students points, because that's really what it's about. We want them to participate, even if they're having a bad day. Just participate and let us know. So then I know how I can reach out to you more during this lesson. Make sure that I'm here to support you in any way possible.
Hmm.
But back to your first part, SOAR again is safe, on task, awesome attitude, and responsible. And how we have it set up for students is kind of in our different virtual locations. So our virtual locations are a little different than what it might be in brick and mortar. So we have like a testing um, little aspect to SOAR, or a working independently aspect to SOAR, or in person when they actually come in person for community day or for state testing. So we have our matrix set up so then students know the different expectations. We have it also set up for, using their computer or their device appropriately so they know how SOAR fits in with that. So making sure that they're using AI appropriately, or that, when it is testing time, that they're not having other tabs open or different things like that. And then, too, with this, because our parents, what we call our learning coaches, are so involved with our students here, we also have a matrix for them. So then they know, too, what they need to do to support their students in this virtual environment so that they are successful.
That's so good. What does PBIS then look like, you think, here compared to a brick and mortar one? Do you think that in our virtual setting, it sounds like we're using this matrix a lot, right? And we're putting this matrix out so that the expectations are clear, so that teachers know what behaviors students do and how they require points. Learning coaches, as you said, know, and then students can know. I imagine brick and mortar schools, they can use a matrix, they can set clear expectations, these sorts of things, and they can also observe behaviors. And then, as you said, GCA has different uh, environments in the online setting. So students can have testing days or testing going on virtually. Then they can have their virtual classrooms, but then they can also have in-person settings like community day. And all of those different places, they can be awarded PBIS points. But do you, how would you compare, if you could, what PBIS looks like at GCA compared to a brick or mortar one? Or do they really are they really very similar? What would you say to that?
I think the biggest thing is we've just had to be creative. We've had to be creative because in brick and mortar, they could set up a store where students could go and get that bag of chips, or they could go and get that pencil or notebook or whatever, physical item that they might want. But here for us virtually, we have to be creative with virtual rewards that are going to be engaging to our students. And we've had to look at that across all different grade bands because a kindergartner might want might be different than what a ninth grader wants.
Mm,
So creativity has kind of been our biggest thing because we want to make sure these students know that we want to give them something for showing these positive behaviors, but we're also limited in
mm,
what we can do. Now, we do have teachers that mail students different items, but we can't require every teacher to do that. So it's definitely something that is up to every teacher for if they're going to do it or not. But we definitely encourage them with especially the younger grades, let that student use their points to be the teacher helper for the day, or they can pick the music for the day. In the older grades, it's creativity with bonus points on a homework assignment or bonus points for um, completing the assignment on time. Just different things like that is what we've had to be creative with. Which in a brick and mortar setting, older students are going to like those bonus points as well. So a lot of our virtual ones can also translate to a brick and mortar setting. We just don't have the ability to send physical items to our students like a brick and mortar setting. But
mm,
overall, the gist of PBIS is really the same. It's just how we're acknowledging our students looks different.
mm. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and that would be a big challenge, the physical objects going through. So, um, when so students acquire points, you're saying, and they use those points to cash in, and so we could say that teachers and staff and even learning coaches are kind of reinforcing the positive behavior through acquiring these PBIS points, right? Would you say there's more to it than that, or do you think that the main piece of PBIS is the points and students acquiring these points to then be able to cash them in? And you mentioned being creative. So the second part to this question is creativity in terms of like rewarding the students on how they use their points. Are there any other rewards or things that you hadn't mentioned that students can purchase or participate in with their points?
Okay, so the first part of your question, it mostly is points, but the program can be more in depth than that. PBIS as a whole, um, we look at something, we have the tiers, all of our students are considered tier one. And so PBIS is touching on those tier one students, every single student here at GCA. But then when we look at tier two and tier three, we are able to do more through PBIS for these students because some of those students might need extra support for their behavior. So we can, create special plans for them where they can then get extra points for whatever behavior it might be that we're kind of working on, which again, those tier two and tier three behaviors look different in a virtual setting. It might be work completion, and so that's what we're trying to get this student to do. It might be actually engaging with the teacher, that they're not ghosting us or anything like that. And so we're able to give them more points for that. But majority, yes, it is it's kind of a token system here of, you want to have these positive behaviors so that you can get these points and their points go with them to all their teachers. So, they might be getting points in language arts that then they want to spend on a special item in their math class. So it's kind of their money that they can decide what they want to do with. And every teacher's store looks a little different. So that's also a great thing for them that, they have a little bit of variety because those teachers do get a choice too in what they put in their store.
Mm,
Kind of one big thing that we have, and we were able to start this last year and we have it again this year, we have something called School Space, which is a virtual little world that our students can use their points to purchase to participate in. And they get to go in with their peers and they have little avatars and they're able to play games in there. They're able to
hmm.
create different things. They can decorate a locker. They can decorate just multiple avenues in this virtual world. But also, as their little avatar gets close to a peer, they're able to then communicate with that peer and kind of chit chat with them. So it's also giving them that opportunity to engage with their peers. And so we have a lot of students participating using their points because they want that engagement. We have teachers in the virtual world as well. And so they're all able, it's kind of like a little recess for them to get in there and kind of play around. They can play chess, they can play soccer, different things with their little avatar, which of course they know how to use those avatars better than we do. But it's been a great opportunity for our kids as a reward option, and all teachers have that in their store so that we give all students the opportunity to purchase this and participate.
That's so cool. Has school space been a pretty popular choice for students? Have you found? Do you know that they're cashing that one in a lot?
Yes, and how the grade bands have it set up is they have a limit, so I'm pretty sure the limit gets met every single session. And I think middle grades they do it kind of weekly, and the other grade bands it might be bi-weekly or monthly that they're doing it. But these students are really wanting to use their points so that they can get in there and hang out with their peers.
That's awesome. How would you measure success, Lakin, or even know that PBIS is working? Like when you step back and you think about it, how do you know, like, okay, what we're doing with PBIS, these points, these different rewards, it's improving student behavior, it's improving school culture. How do you know it's working?
We have a couple of different data points that we look at, but one is definitely our referrals. Seeing referrals decline
Mm,
over the past couple of years has been a huge one. But also through the PBIS rewards program, we're able to see, how many teachers are using the program, how many points are they giving, and we can definitely see more and more teachers using the program with fidelity every single month. And this program is so easy to use for the teachers, and that's what we love about it is just the accessibility that they have and how it's quick and easy for them to do, and they can keep rolling with their lesson. But those are kind of our big data points. One other aspect of how we acknowledge our students is through postcards. So we do have teachers who mail postcards to the students. Every single teacher received 100 postcards this year.
hmm.
And so We look at that data as well because they log this and then we're able to pull that and see. And so that's been a huge increase as well over the past couple of years with how many postcards are being sent to students.
Mm,
This is only our fourth year implementing PBIS, and we have seen tremendous growth in the program and how positively it has affected Georgia cyber in a bunch of different ways.
mm, very cool. What do you think other schools, whether virtual or brick and mortar, could learn from GCA's approach to creating a positive culture at scale? Like what you do, what you lead up with PBIS. What would you say like, hey, um, I think that whether brick and mortar or virtual, they could learn if they took these key things away.
Well, definitely for other virtual systems that it can be done. You know, you can have PBIS in a virtual setting. I've gone to different state events or regional events, and everybody's always impressed that we are implementing a PBIS program in a virtual setting, and then they start asking questions. But it can be done. You know, you just have to be creative, but it can be done. And your creativity just comes with, well, how are you going to implement it? And then how are you going to reward your students once you've acknowledged them?
Mm,
But then too for brick and mortar friends that we can still support our students through PBIS just like they can. And it just looks a little differently, but that we're able to still implement a program that a lot of brick and mortar schools implement. And we just reward our students a little differently than they do. But overall the concept and having a matrix, having SOAR or whatever the brick and mortar school may have is all very similar.
mm, so good. What do you think makes GCA's PBIS program unique or effective? Because you've said you've had to be creative, right? And so I would think that maybe you're like, well, that's what makes the program unique. You know, we're actually doing it, as you said, we're an online school and we're actually implementing it. But is there anything that you would hone in or zoom in on that you're like, you know what, this is actually what's making it especially effective? Is it the use of school space? Has that been something that's like, oh my gosh, it's very effective. It's making these students use the points. Or is there something else that comes to mind when you're like, man, this is what Halton, this is what makes this especially effective at GCA? Is it the postcards?
I think it would be engagement, honestly. That's such a hard thing in a virtual setting is to get our students engaged because some don't want to be on camera, some just want to do their work and keep moving on. But our program has helped to engage our students. And in turn, engagement has helped grades and attendance and all these other aspects for these students. But also, it's helped to decrease our behavior referrals, which is also huge as well. So, engagement has been a huge part of this program.
Mm. And do you think there are any systems or routines that you've set in place, that GCA set in place, that other schools, whether virtual or brick and mortar, they could replicate to kind of build a PBIS system, positive connected culture, that you would recommend? Anything we're doing here, whether from a systems or routines aspect?
I think it's more so, accountability on everybody's part. Yeah, is kind of where it starts. What we're doing with PBIS is not the program itself is not something that we created. PBIS has been around for a while, but I think more so the accountability that we put on teachers for using the program with fidelity, on me and administrators and then on students, being engaged. And that's really it's the buy-in there that you have to have
Mm,
so that you have that accountability from everybody.
that's good. So you would basically say, let's really harp on buy-in at the
Hmm.
beginning. It's not a particular like this is the routine, this is the system that works, but really like if you can get the buy-in in the beginning, then the implementation is going to follow.
Yes, for sure.
This could upset you, like, but if someone were to say to you, PBIS, it can't work in an online school. You're at these regional conferences, you said, right? You go to these conferences. They're like, what? You can't do. How are you doing PBIS online? So when if someone were to say to you, look, you can't make PBIS work in an online school environment. No way. What would you say to that person?
I can prove you wrong. And really it would just be more so, showing them the success that we've had over these, this is year 4. So the success that we've had, the state recognition we've received for being able to implement the program and have fidelity with it, have teams that support it and really just the engagement all around that we've seen increase because of it.
Sure. And I imagine you doing this 4 years, I imagine there's things that you have done or you've seen or tried that like didn't work out that well.
Hmm.
And you're like, okay, let's be adaptable. Let's change. Let's figure this out. So I think that that's an important thing to take away too, is like it's not like all this is going to go perfectly, but the fact that you respond and can be flexible with it as you're going through trying to implement these different PBIs things. But leave us with this, and maybe I took your answer from you. Maybe this is what you were going to say. But what would you say is the biggest lesson or a lesson that comes to mind that you've learned from doing PBIS, from building and creating, sustaining this positive school culture in a virtual setting, like you've done the past 4 years?
Ooh, the biggest lesson. I think the biggest thing is I am a team of one. And so how can I be here to support, our hundreds of teachers that we have
Mm,
and our thousands of students that we have and make sure that the program is effective. And so I think the biggest lesson is just, always listening and learning and being willing to change. We have changed acknowledgement systems, kind of like you said. So we've made adjustments to the program because ultimately it's our teachers doing the work. And we want this to be the easiest, most effective thing for them. And so, it's listening to them to know, okay, how can I make your life easier? Because we know the teachers have so much going on. We don't want this to be one more thing,
mm,
but something that they feel like they can easily implement in their classrooms.
that's so good. Remembering you don't want to be the one more thing because, yeah,
Hmm.
teachers have a lot on their plate. So here's today's big idea. When schools intentionally define, teach, and celebrate positive behavior, culture isn't limited by geography. It thrives anywhere. So thanks again to Lakin Whitesides for joining us and sharing her expertise. If this episode sparked new ideas about building school culture, be sure to subscribe and join us next time on GCA Unmuted, Voices of Virtual Education. Thanks, Lakin.
Thank you.